this is the latest video we are getting for this breaking news alert. Learning bright and early on this Friday morning that the Israeli military, they did strike near Syria's presidential palace. Israel's Air Force striking near Syria's presidential palace this morning after warning Syrian authorities not to march toward villages inhabited by members of a minority sect in southern Syria. The strike came after days of clashes between pro-Syrian government gunmen and fighters who belong to the Druse minority sect near the capital of Damascus. These clashes leaving dozens of people dead and wounded. A lot to discuss this morning, so we want to bring into the conversation distinguished lecturer in terrorism and homeland security with the University of New Haven, Ken Gray. Ken, good morning. Always a pleasure.
Good morning. Glad to be with you again.
So we're following this breaking news, further showing that conflict in the Middle East far from over, Ken. We've been keeping a close eye on Hamas and Hezbollah, the Yemen Houthi rebels, keeping a close eye on Syria this morning, learning of these Israeli airstrikes near Syria's presidential palace. Set the stage for us, please.
Sure. So, as you will recall, Syria has had conflict going on there where the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham has taken over the country. They, along with other Islamic fighters, pushing Assad out of power there and taking over most of the country. However, there are other factions within Syria that are not followers of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham that are still resisting against them. One such group is the Druse. The Druse are being attacked now by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is now the government of this newly formed government in Syria. And so Israel has been launching attacks against Hayat Tahrir al-Sham to try to protect the Druze, but also trying to set up a barrier for Israel against the encroachment of this group for the Golan Heights. And so this latest attack is trying to protect the Druze fighters that were in the area there near the palace. Exactly what was struck, I don't know at this point what exactly the targets were, but it was attacks to support the Druze against this encroachment by the new government there in Syria.
Ken, thank you so much for that detailed overview. And as we further discuss this breaking news alert, a lot of the viewers wanting to know, okay, well, who authorized this attack? This just in from the Minister of Defense of Israel, Israel Katz, who says, quote, the Air Force attack on the presidential palace in Damascus, which the Prime Minister and I directed, is a clear warning message to the Syrian regime. When Julani wakes up in the morning and sees the results of the Israeli Air Force jet attack, he understands very well that Israel is determined to prevent harm to the Druze in Syria. It is his duty to protect the Druze in the suburbs of Damascus from attacks by jihadist rioters and to allow the hundreds of thousands of Druze in Swelda and the Druze mountains to defend themselves on their own and not to send jihadist forces into the communities. He goes on to say, quote, it is our duty to protect the Druze in Syria from harm for the sake of our Druze brothers in Israel and their loyalty to the state and their enormous contribution to Israel's security, end quote. Break this down for us, Ken. A lot to dissect from this quote this morning from Israel Katz, the Minister of Defense of Israel.
Sure. This is showing again that Israel believes that it has a duty to protect the Druze from the attack by this new regime there in Syria. Now, in many ways, though, Israel is extending itself long distances into Syria in an area that they don't need another front for. So it is somewhat surprising that they decided to undertake trying to protect the Druze from the attacks by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, but nonetheless, they have undertaken this hoping to turn the Druze into an ally with them in this area. Remember that the former government was no friend of Israel, and that when that got pushed out by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and other forces, The country was somewhat up for grabs, and so Israel was trying to set up a protective border with between the Golan Heights and Syria to keep an encroachment from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham from getting into Israel. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham has supposedly canceled their connections to al-Qaeda. However, Jelani himself was a member of Council for al-Qaeda, so I don't believe that that connection has gone away. I think they are still supporters of al-Qaeda.
Ken, so many great points you raised this morning. And one of those points, many of the viewers share that sentiment, even those in the Israeli community that still are gathering in Hostage Square, demanding that the Israeli government bring the remaining hostages in Hamas captivity home. You mentioned how some feel that Israel might be overextending itself to aid other areas where Israelis are living. Some people do share that sentiment this morning. Could you break that down? Is Israel doing enough for their own people in Israel to get those remaining hostages home, or do you think they're doing what they need to do to aid Syria in this fight?
Well, Netanyahu has once again stated that he sees the destruction of Hamas as the priority over the remaining hostages. So while the new rounds of talks with Hamas seems to have stalled somewhat as far as trying to once again break the logjam here of getting hostages back to Israel, that nonetheless that Israeli forces are once again spread throughout the entire Gaza Strip, where they are fighting Hamas in different areas. Hamas has no capabilities at all what they had at the beginning of the conflict here. So Israel has really hurt them, but nonetheless, they are once again playing whack-a-mole, where they're popping up in different neighborhoods, and Israel is having to once again go into these neighborhoods to fight Hamas or to launch airstrikes against them. And so by no means is the conflict in the Gaza Strip over. They are still fighting against Hamas there, even though a greatly reduced capable Hamas.
Ken Gray, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for the detailed overview and your perspective and expertise on all things Middle East conflict, specifically this breaking news alert we are following as it relates to Israel and Syria. I hope you have a great rest of your day and a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Janae.
Thank you.